I used to introduce myself as, "G'day, I'm Garry Ridge. I'm the consciously incompetent, probably wrong and roughly right chairman and CEO of WD-40 company, and I need all the help I can get."
And the analysts loved it.
They loved it. and so did the people, because it's amazing how much help you get when you are open about what you do and you don't know, and you ask for help. So that was the success.
Welcome to International Business Today, where we discuss the most critical issues in international business with top academic experts and thought leaders. I'm Paula Caligiuri, a professor in the International Business and Strategy Group at Northeastern University's DeMoore McKim School of Business. Today, I am so happy to be joined by Garry Ridge. Garry is best known as the longtime CEO of the WD-40 company, where he helped turn an industrial lubricant into a global brand sold in more than 170 countries. He's now a speaker and a best-selling author with his new book called Any Dumbass Can Do It: Learning Moments from an Everyday CEO. As someone who teaches leadership, I love this book. It's candid, it's funny, and it's filled with advice on leadership and organizational culture. Garry, welcome to International Business Today.
G'day, Paula. It's just a delight to be with you. Thank you for inviting me along.
Oh, you know I'm a fangirl, so I'm so excited to have you on the show. But I want to start right off with the title.
Mm-hmm.
Any dumbass can do it. Really? Can any dumbass do it, or is that just like Aussie humor?
Well, there is a bit of Aussie humor in it, because ASS in the title is not referring to anybody's posterior or bottom. In fact, it's really talking about a donkey, because there are attributes of a donkey that really align with leadership. They're dependable. They carry the load. They'll help you get where you want to go. They don't necessarily run into things, so they're thoughtful. So to be a great leader, you don't necessarily have to be brilliant. You have to care, have humility, and be a continual learner. And just like the donkey, you have to help others get to their destination. So that was the thought behind the title. And it's catchy.
It is very catchy, but let's go with the word any. So do you think everybody has that ability to step up and have that humility and carry others' loads? And
obviously not, because when you look at the business world today, I think it's a shame, and we should be ashamed of the fact that about 70% of people who go to work every day are disengaged or actively disengaged and not going home happy. So I think that there's a possibility that if you really are aware of your leadership behavior, you can be a great leader, but you've really got to be deliberate about it. So maybe, yes, any can, but unfortunately, not a lot do.
Yeah, but what's so beautiful about what you're sharing is that those are behaviors we could all learn. So if someone has the will to lead in a way that most people would be motivated to want to follow, they can learn how to
Absolutely.
do that.
And, it's interesting in the coaching work that I do now, the first stage of it is awareness. And I am convinced that leaders don't get up every morning and take the pledge of, I am going to be a soul-sucking leader today. But when I do my coaching work, they don't realize how their behavior actually impacts those they have the privilege to lead. And if they're really serious about being better leaders and being better for their people, once you make them aware of those behaviors, and they're intentional about being better than the behavior that we've identified, they actually do become better leaders, and the people they lead actually perform better, enjoy their work better, and feel better.
And it's such a dominant way to create corporate culture, is to have a great leader, certainly like you created. Your numbers in employee engagement were extraordinarily high. I mean, ones I've never seen in the 90s, over time, even through COVID. That was extraordinary.
98% of the people at the company said they'd love to tell people they worked at the company. We had a 93% employee engagement. 97% of our people said they trusted or respected their coach, and their coach was their manager. We renamed leaders as coaches because the role of a leader is not to manage. You manage your bank account, you manage inventory. In fact, if you look up manager in some dictionaries, it says manipulator.
Oof.
So, but our job is to be a great coach. And a great coach is someone who understands what it takes to win the game, has experience in the game, spends a lot of time on the sideline observing the play, never runs on the field and steals the ball. I know your Italian background, so I'm sure you like soccer, right? I've never seen a great soccer coach run onto the field in the last 10 minutes of a great soccer game and steal the ball. And a great coach never goes to the podium and picks up the prize. But a great coach spends a lot of time in the stinky locker room because that's where you build trust and you really do connect and understand what those players are going through. That's the empathy side of leadership. And unfortunately, bad leaders have ego eating their empathy instead of empathy eating their ego.
Yeah. It's interesting because they're coaches, not cheerleaders. So they can be tough and tough-minded and do what needs to be done, at the same time be supportive and encouraging.
Yeah, leadership is a balance between being tough-minded and tender-hearted. And the genius is in the and.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You tell a story in the book that I absolutely loved. It was, I think, when you were relatively new to the role of CEO. So you were with WD-40 for about 30 years?
35 years.
35 years. And it was, I think, at the start of your tenure as CEO, when you said you were in a room with all of your senior managers, and there was a well-known consultant in the front of the room giving a talk.
Yeah, I remember
and you
that.
look around and everybody's taking notes and listening attentively. And I want you to tell the rest of the story because it's so good.
Yeah, well, it was one of those situations where someone was camouflaging the issue with confusion, as I call it, to make it how smart they were. But I was sitting in this room and I'd only just moved to San Diego from Australia. Even though I started in 87 in Australia, I moved to San Diego in 94. So I was in this room and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I have no clue what this person's talking about. And I'm thinking this could be a career limiting move because the then president and CEO of the company was in the room. And I thought, okay, this is not me. I put up my hand. Excuse me, not long in this country, but I have no clue what you're talking about. And everyone in the room went, because nobody else knew either. And I really emphasize to me 3 of the most important words that I've ever learned in my life. And they are, I don't know. And getting comfortable with those 3 words is really something that is a leadership skill, if you will, or that just is so beneficial. I call myself now the dean of dumbassery. And, when I was in full-time work, I used to introduce myself as, "G'day, I'm Garry Ridge. I'm the consciously incompetent, probably wrong and roughly right chairman and CEO of WD-40 Company, and I need all the help I can get."
And the analysts loved it.
They loved it. and so did the people, because it's amazing how much help you get when you are open about what you do and you don't know, and you ask for help. So that was the success.
Yeah. Garry, it's interesting because in our work with people who are leaders in different cultures, one of the dominant traits of people who are effective is humility.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the ability to say, yeah, I know what I'm doing in strategy or finance or whatever, but I don't know how to do it here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know how to do it in this context. And you know what? The world is becoming so complex and uncertain and challenging. None of us can be resident experts on everything. So.
It was interesting about uncertainty. I was at a conference recently where they were talking about the word maybe and how powerful the word maybe is, because it's not communicating that you don't know, but it's communicating that you need to know more.
Right.
And I think we need to be careful about this uncertainty because it can be paralyzing, and it needn't be. Great leaders, I think, are not necessarily bound by a strong opinion that they want to keep for themselves. They used to laugh at me a little bit at the company because I'd have a strong point of view about something. And 2 weeks later, I might change my point of view. And they'd say, "What happened?" I said, well, I learned something new. You know, there was something that came to me that helped me change my mind. There's a great book out there called Who Moved My Cheese, right?
I remember that one, yeah.
The follow-on is called Out of the Maze. And there's a question in that I've asked myself forever. Why do I believe what I believe? And it's so powerful when you know, people come to you with situations. Well, wait a minute, why do I believe that? What right do I have to believe that? Is it fact? Is it fiction? Or is it opinion? And fact, fiction, or opinion drive our beliefs, feelings, and intentions. And from that comes our action. So how screwed up can we get if we're not asking ourselves, why do I believe that?
Yeah. So this is so important when we talk about leaders creating corporate cultures, which is certainly something that you do and know well. You talk about learning moments.
Mm-hmm.
You don't call them mistakes. You call them learning moments. Can you tell us about those a little bit?
Yeah, well, you know, I believe in organizations, most people don't lie. They fake and they hide. And the reason they fake and hide is because of fear. So isn't it our job as leaders to create an environment where there is a low level of fear? And I think the word failure is pretty scary. Mm-hmm. So why don't we talk about positive or negative outcomes as a learning moment? And when I went back to school just after becoming CEO, I birthed the thought of the learning moment. So I said a learning moment is a positive or negative outcome of any situation that needs to be openly and freely shared to benefit all people. Interestingly enough, on reflection, WD-40 was because of learning moments. Back in 1953, the company was called Rocket Chemical Company. It was a fledgling company in San Diego. There was a problem with condensation and corrosion in the umbilical cord of the Atlas space rocket. Chemists got together and started to mix up a solution. Formula 1 didn't work, 20 didn't work, 35 didn't work, 39 didn't work, 40 worked. That's why it's called WD, water displacement 40th formula. So in creating the learning moment, I could reflect on the history of the brand as well, which made it real. Yeah, so beautiful. We'd talk about, hey, what was our learning moment? The trick was getting people to trust that they could talk about things that didn't work as well. And when we introduced it, I started a contest and I said, send me your learning moments. We're going to have a monthly prize, and at the end of the year, we'll have a big prize. And the first month, I got 4 people that were brave enough to share their negative learning moment with me. I made heroes out of those people. I rewarded them and applauded them, and they were my,
That's culture right there.
Yeah, and then from there I got 8 and 15, and eventually it became just common. And even today, they talk all the time about what was my learning moment, because a learning moment, a negative learning moment, is 1 minute or one discovery away from something magnificent. So it was really very powerful.
There was a story you shared in the book, and I wonder if this was a learning moment for you, about being at a conference in China, at a trade show in China. Do you want to share that story, or was that a learning moment for you?
That was something, yeah. I was in mainland China and at a trade show. It was an automotive trade show. And one of the things that we did to make people aware of our product is we would give samples away. And the Chinese word for lubricant is lunhua, and the Chinese word for sample is yangping. So I'm on this trade show stand giving away lunhua yangping samples of lubricant. And the people are just walking past me, not paying any attention whatsoever. And I think this is not just a learning moment, but it's also a lesson in curiosity. And I looked out of the corner of my eye and I could see a line of people lined up at a motor stand for, I think it was Toyota, and they were picking up a brown paper bag with a string handle on it. And I thought, and they were queued to get this. I thought, what the hell is in that bag? So I walk over to the stand, I look in the bag. There's nothing in the bag. I thought, okay, I'll look in another bag. I look in the next bag. There's nothing in the bag. So I call my Chinese mates across and I say, well, what's going on here? Why do they want this bag? And they said, well, because it's very useful. It's actually the right size that they would use to go to their local store and get a scoop of rice. So why don't they want my WD-40? So we did a quick, kind of research from people passing by. They didn't lubricant wasn't of interest to them. They had dirty diesel oil that was solving the problem. But what was a problem to them was corrosion and rust. Well, the product also is good for stopping corrosion. So we changed the message from lubricant to anti-rust lubricant. Paula, within minutes, I had to have security guards on the stand to stop people from pushing the stand over to get this sample of the same thing.
Wow.
My big learning moment was then, and particularly in marketing, who's the target? What's the message? Are you really tuning in to the end user's need? Which led on to my theory of, do you need me? How do you know me? Can you buy me? Which was kind of the 3 steps I would go through with our leaders about new markets. Do people need us? Okay, are we sure we've identified the need? Then how do we have them know us? And then how do we make it easy for them to buy us?
It's also such a powerful learning moment in, like you said, curiosity, humility, perspective taking, asking the right questions, and you had to learn a few more words in Chinese.
Yeah. I could have walked out of there and said, I don't know.
Not our market.
Not our market. Now it's one of our, when I left it was, I think we had 70 or 80 people in our subsidiary there, and it's stop and squeaks every day.
I want to talk about another word. So learning moment is certainly a word that, or a phrase that you coined. You also use the word tribe instead of team or employees or whatever. Can you share a little bit about where that one came from?
Yeah. So when I talk about tribe, it's not reflection of any indigenous group. It goes back to the beginning of mankind. Ugg the caveman was a tribe member. And the thing about it, I think there are some key elements that need to be in place to build great cultures in organization. The number one is belonging. Do I feel like, and am I treated like I belong? And my theory was that you don't belong to a team, you play on a team. Mm-hmm. But when I started studying attributes of tribes, something came out that was really powerful. The number one responsibility of a tribal leader is to be a learner and a teacher, because being a learner and a teacher meant that you were passing on the knowledge of success and the ability to survive to those that you led. So the other thing was that a tribe was something you belonged to, and we had a tribal promise, which was a group of people that come together to protect and feed each other. That was our just cause in the organization. Tribes also had other attributes. They have values, they're future focused, we recognize specialized skills because within tribes there are different skills. They're warriors, they're there to protect and feed each other, and they celebrate. So having that as the model of a tribe at WD-40 allowed me to talk about all those things. But the thing that I love talking about the most when I talk to our leaders is your number one role is to be a continual learner and to be a continual teacher. Because if you're doing that, we will be equipping those we have the privilege to lead to carry on into the future with success.
And those are all the top hits for human motivation, right? A sense of belonging, a sense of growth, a sense of mastery. It's really so important. It's also what you said about, the tribe. It's evolutionary, right? We want to feel like we're protected and that we belong. But you also describe that idea of the leaders of the tribe, if you will, the coaches, passing on the culture to those who are new to your organization. That's really what helps perpetuate a strong culture like you had at WD-40.
And also ceremonies and traditions and we have to bring real life into organizations. We had a wonderful tradition. I learned it actually from the people in Hawaii. When we get together for a leadership meeting, the night before, we'd all get around a fire and we'd write something on a 3x5 card that we wanted to release to the universe. Aww. And now we'd often have a glass of wine or adult beverage there with us. And the tribe members had the choice to either disclose it or not disclose it. Well, as this thing developed, they would be disclosing things that they were letting go of in their life. And it was a wonderful way before we got into the work of work, the night before, of just, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it again, of getting our people together to share and show their real self. It was very bonding. So we had traditions and ceremonies that I think also kept us as one.
Yeah, so many could learn from the case of the culture you created. That is really very beautiful. I'm a little concerned. I hear this a lot from CEOs talking about, the strength of our organizational culture. And I know, okay, maybe you're comfortable with remote work. I'm curious curious about your perspective on whether when a culture is not as strong as WD-40, what happens to an org culture when everyone's working remotely?
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I think meaningful proximity is very important. I got worried during COVID that we wouldn't maintain our cultural equity because of distance. I worry more now, and I talk to CEOs about a lot now, that they have to be brave enough to create a situation where they create meaningful proximity. And what I mean by that, Paula runs out the door in the morning, gives a husband, wife, or significant other a high five and says, I am so excited today because I am going to fill in the blank to do fill in the blank. Because at the end of the day, we're human beings, and great strategies are generated through debate and conversation and challenge. And you don't get that on a Zoom screen. So I think we learnt through COVID, you certainly can achieve certain tasks and do great work without having to be together. But there are some things you can't. And, in my whole career as CEO, I used to observe people. In fact, my daughter is a dance teacher, and she gave me some great advice. She said, Dad, before you put anybody on Broadway under the big lights, watch them dance off Broadway to see what steps they need to improve. And I took that piece of wisdom from my daughter, and I used to think about people in the organization when I was observing people for bigger, better, more important leadership roles. I'd give them off-Broadway dance assignments, and I'd watch them dance. How did they interact with people in the real life? And so I think this is something we've got to really think hard about. And we've got to be brave enough as leaders not to use the excuse that we don't trust people while we're bringing them back to work, but we want that human interaction. We want, and even more so today with AI and all the technology that's out there. There's a terrible disease of loneliness right now. If you put someone in solitary confinement, they go crazy. And I observed during COVID too, Paula, that people were becoming more finite on a point of view because they hadn't had the opportunity to have a chat with someone about it. We call it having a yarn in Australia. I'm going to have a yarn with you about this and tell me what you think. What if this, what if that? So it's something I think we've really got to think hard about.
Yeah. I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I'm really concerned about what's happening to organizations that claim they're competing on their strong corporate cultures, but yet there's no senior to junior transfer of ways of doing things, no ceremonies like some of the ones you described, no rites and rituals, no just the stuff that makes a strong corporate culture. I really, really am concerned about that.
Yeah, me too.
So you operated in over 170 countries, and you have such a tight corporate culture. Did you have any challenge moving it from country to country?
Well, we had a foundation that was very important, and those were our values. So we had a hierarchical set of values in the organization, and each of the values had a written description of what that value meant and how that behavior was. So, for example, our number one value is we value doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. We described what that meant to us, because doing the right thing in Beijing may look a little different to doing the right thing in London, to doing the right thing in Sydney or Boston. So we agreed that internally we could have these values that could exist in any other culture. Mm-hmm. So those were the foundations. And I had an objective with our values. As we started to expand, I said, I want our people anywhere in the world, at any time in the day, to be able to make any decision they needed to make without quacking up the hierarchy.
Quacking up.
Yeah. Well, quack, quack, you go,
Yeah.
Where's the big mallard duck who's going to give me the authority, right? And in fact, that's what happened, that we empowered people to make decisions based on a hierarchical set of values. If you need to make a decision, just run it through our values and the answer should become clear to you. And there's a great example of that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
This story is probably wrong and roughly right, but let's play a little charade here. Paula works for the company. She is in the supply chain. And someone comes in one day and says, Paula, I'm going to make you a hero today. You're a public company. You're on NASDAQ Stock Exchange. The shareholders love earnings per share. Your analysts are going to love you because if you replace one of your ingredients today with the ingredient that I have for you, you can take $4 million to the bottom line. In fact, when you go to see the CEO, you'll probably get promoted. Paula says, tell me more. Is it efficacy? Is it good? Yeah, we've tested it. It's fine. Wow. This is really exciting. Is there anything else I should know? Paula, there is one thing, but don't worry about it. Everybody does it. Just got to put a little warning on the can. It's called a Prop 65 warning. It says in the state of California, there's an ingredient here that could cause cancer. But don't worry about it. Other people do it. That's fine. Paula said, oh dear, I'm sorry. Our number one value in the company is we value doing the right thing. Our number two value is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. And cancer does not cause a positive, lasting memory. I'm sorry. I wish I could take you up on your offer, but I can't take you up on your offer. Paula, this is a public company. It's $4 million worth of profit. Yeah, I know, but our number 6th value is we value sustaining the WD-40 economy, which is about profitability. But if we live the other 5, we will sustain that over time. Look, you don't understand. I need to talk to who's your boss? Who's your boss? You can confidently say you can go talk to anybody you like. Paula goes up to the CEO's office and say, I'm sorry, I made a decision today not to save us $4 million because I used one of our values. The CEO says, you're promoted.
That's beautiful.
And it's a little exaggerated, but that's exactly how it happened. So how did Paula feel? I feel empowered. I'm living a value. I'm proud of what I do. It's, I didn't have to worry about someone overruling me because I used our values to make that decision.
Yeah. I would imagine that culture was easier to implement in places like the United States or Australia, a little more individualistic, where not individualistic in the negative sense, but the ability to sort of feel empowered where others might need a little more deference to hierarchy. So might bring others into the conversation.
Yeah, well, if you get a consensus culture like Japan or even China, or you get a relationships culture like Latin America, but when they saw the power of it, people really, or the tribe really felt that it was so empowering. So yeah, but it means we had to talk about it. And, that's the other thing that's so important about what we're talking about today. Culture equals values plus behavior times consistency. And Simon Sinek had that equation in one of his books, but it says culture equals values plus consistency. And I said to Simon, he missed the word consistency. And I said, Simon, he said, you're right. This is something that we have to do over and over and over again. I have a friend of mine, his name's Charlie Maloof. He owns a chain of Ashley furniture stores out in Charlotte. And he has a great quote. He says, culture is not a microwavable event. It takes a crock-pot approach. And it's so true. You have to know the ingredients and continue to monitor the crock pot and cook it up and watch it every day.
And it's not that sign on the wall. It's not that, once a year.
Hoorah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It makes me, you walk into some organizations and they say, look at our values. We have them up on the wall. And I say, look at your behavior.
You don't have a culture.
You don't have a culture.
Right.
Yeah.
No, this is a really important conversation. And sometimes there are those moments that are memorable. And I'm going to remind you of one. So in 2011, you famously wore a full... It wasn't a suit of armor, right? It was chain metal.
Yeah.
And you carried a sword, a real sword, and rode a horse through Times Square to NASDAQ. Tell us about what that was all about.
That was great. I mean, it was the company's 50th anniversary, and we talked about how are we going to really show the value that this brand had delivered, not only to the shareholders and the consumers, but the people in the company. And when I was doing my master's degree at USD, I did some study around Richard Branson. Mm-hmm. And Branson, when he was taking on Coke, took a tank into Wall Street and squashed a lot of Coke cans. And this was on my mind. And I said, well, we're not going to do that. And someone said, well, how are we going to, what are we going to do? And we're in a sort of a brainstorming meeting, and someone said, well, we could take the secret formula out of the vault because it's a secret formula, take it to Wall Street. And okay, yeah, well, that sounds interesting. And well, I could guard it. How would I guard it? And somehow we got to the stage where why don't you ride a horse? And I said, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm Australian. I guess I can ride a horse. So I got dressed up in the suit of armor, and we rode the horse down Times Square and opened NASDAQ Stock Exchange. And it was a bunch of fun, but it was one of those times of showing vulnerability. The tribe was so excited. And are you actually going to do that? Yeah, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And we got obviously a lot of publicity from it, but it really was an event to just be able to recognize the power of the brand, but also to show I'm happy being vulnerable.
Right. And it's symbolic. It's fun. It's playful. It's your culture.
Yeah.
You have other symbols, and I know you brought one with you. We have to show that one.
Yeah.
That's Alec?
This could be Alec or Alice. This is the soul-sucking CEO of Fear Incorporated. And I had to have something to talk about when I talk about these toxic behaviors that create crappy culture. And, Alex or Alice, their ego eats their empathy instead of their empathy eating their ego. They're a micromanager. They must always be right. They hate learning. They don't like feedback, and the list goes on. And this is the guy that people don't get up to be, or the girl that people don't get up to be in the morning, but because they're unaware of their behavior, they end up like Alec the soul, or Alice the soul-sucking CEO. So I take these little dolls with me, and I talk about the reverse of that, which is a true servant leader who's there to serve their people, who love learning. They're always in servant leadership mode. They love feedback. They're open to, to the people of the organization. They're empathetic. Which is the other side of leadership. Now, it's funny. Everybody talks about this and they say this is the soft stuff. I'm going to tell you it is not soft. If it was soft, we'd be doing it. But as we talked about earlier, 70% of people go to work every day and they're disengaged or actively disengaged. So it's hard to build great cultures. And the fish rots from the head, Paula. So it's all about how are you setting the stage as a leader? I used to say to my leadership team, be under no misunderstanding. The only reason we exist here today is to help those we have the privilege to lead step into the better version of themselves. And if you're not prepared to do that, that's okay. You can be happy somewhere else, but that's what we're going to do here.
Well, that's your tough-mindedness, your ability to sort of keep continually shepherd that organizational culture. I've been starting to call them durable skills as opposed to soft skills. So the humility, perspective taking, resilience, curiosity, that these are the skills that you can't go to a lunch and learn and pick up. You really do need to practice them every day and be ready to step up and learn the behaviors.
I have a little placard on my notebook, and it says, am I being the person I want to be right now? And then it says, who is that person? And I've carried that around for many years because I need to be reminded that I want to be curious. I want to be a learner. I want to throw sunshine, not a shadow. I want to, I want to be a learner. I want to be all these things, but we're just these basic human beings bumbling our way down this pathway of life. And in the bushes are these thieves that come and grab us, the thieves of anger and greed and impatience. And we get in the bushes for a minute and we think this is okay. But if we don't remind ourselves to get out of there and get back on that path again, we'll never get to our destination. And I often say, we have no right to take our leftovers to people. You know, how many times are we in a meeting or in a situation and we're running from one thing to another and we don't take time to center ourselves, and now I take my leftovers to you. You don't deserve my leftovers. You deserve my full plate. You're the most important person in my life right now. Why should I not bring my best self to you? So I think you have to be deliberate about this stuff because it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, it's certainly not, but it's so critical. And I wish every CEO who is out there talking about strong organizational cultures really heard that message, because it is so important. I'm just curious a little bit about your predictions for the future. So we're in a time of disruption. AI is changing the world of work. Do you have any advice for leadership in this kind of ever-changing future, or is it the same principles apply?
Well, I think I have a saying: he who uses the crystal ball learns to eat glass. But having said that, I'm really excited about AI, and I'll tell you why. And this might be just pure dumbassery in my fact, but one of the things that the negative pieces of feedback I got often is we don't have enough time. And AI put to use gives us time. So what if we then were able to use that gift of time in organizations to do exciting things? So I'm excited about that. The great other thing about this whole AI thing is you can take some of the head, but you can't take the heart.
Right.
And the heart is the thing that really is so important in business. So I'm not bright enough. I'm not smart enough to predict the future. We're in a changing world. You know, my dad worked for the same company for 50 years. He was born in 1907, right? He was an engineer. And I remember when the fax machine came out, and he said, how do they put paper through wire? You know, and that's how do things change? Things are changing, and, you know, it's up to us to adapt to them and work with them. So I think there's a lot of misconception about what AI is going to do. We're in such an early stage of it. But the one thing I do know, it can give us time. And we still have to interpret the information, and we still have to use our heart to put it to work. But people are still people. Mm-hmm. So let's get people in the heart.
Humans will always need to be the ones to instill trust and read the air.
Yeah.
Sense when energy's low or psychological safety is needed. I know when we did the study of tech CEOs, they were saying that the competencies that we were talking about, the resilience and perspective taking in, humility, and tolerance of ambiguity and curiosity, these durable skills are becoming more important. So basically, the more AI, we need to be more human.
Yes.
For exactly the reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
You described.
Exactly. So I think it's exciting times. I mean, I never thought I'd use AI, and I use it. And I used it yesterday. So, but I used it in my coaching business that I do now. So.
Well, that's wonderful. And Garry, so as a coach, what is your sort of parting piece of advice for listeners? Many are global leaders or people who'd like to ascend to your role.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple. I think that firstly, it's not about you. You know, life is a gift. Don't send it back unwrapped. And we as leaders have an opportunity. Imagine a place where you go to work every day, you make a contribution to something bigger than yourself. You learn something new. You're protected and you're set free by a compelling set of values, and you go home happy. Happy people build happy families. Happy families build happy communities. Happy communities build a happy world. And we need a happier world. And business has an opportunity and a responsibility to make the world a little happier place by sending people home happy. And we can do that if we really do believe it's all about the people and life is a gift. And, you know, and when I'm 99 years old on my deathbed, it won't be the corner office that I never had anyhow. It'll be, you know, what have we done to help people along the way? Because that's what life's about.
I'm so glad you're influencing many in this leadership space. Garry, this was great. Thank you so much for being on International Business Today.
It's been a delight. Thanks for having me along.
So tell us, where can we find the book?
Well, if you go on my website, which is www.thelearningmoment.net, you can actually do a dumbass quiz.
A quiz.
A quiz. And you can take the quiz and you get your score of dumbassery. And the higher the score is, the better leader you are. And in fact, I'll send you a little playbook after you've taken the quiz with a few things you can start doing today. But you can get the book on Amazon or follow me on LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn regularly, sharing my learning moments and my scar tissue. So any of those places. But I hope people take the quiz.
Oh, it's terrific. And I'm going to assign it in my classes.
Great.
To our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of International Business Today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Please know that your 5-star reviews mean the world to us, helping others discover the show. Until next time, stay curious and send questions. We'd love to hear from you.